This is Shout Podcast, the official health and wellbeing podcast from the Firefighters Charity.
Hi, this is Kim. Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Shout Podcast. In this brand new series, we're focusing on health and well-being. In each episode, we'll take a close look at a specific topic or issue and speak to experts as well as hear from beneficiaries. So in this particular episode, we'll be hearing from Stuart Rye, former firefighter, about the link he's found between his physical health and his mental health. But first, I spoke with the charity's physiotherapist Laura Connolly and senior exercise therapist Kelly Brown, who first explained to me what we mean about being physically active.
Being physically active is definitely a start, and there's quite a stark difference between physical activity and exercise, and quite often people tend to get confused between the two. Physical activity, the World Health Organization actually defined it as any physical movement, so that includes activities of daily living. So that could include carrying your shopping bags, it could include dog walking, gardening, mowing the lawn, for example. Whereas exercise is planned and structured, and it's designed to improve your fitness. But yeah, definitely being physically active definitely helps improve our well-being.
And you touched on a couple of little things there, Kelly, that we can do to be physically active. So how do we kind of get ourselves into a mindset of finding something that we like?
Yeah, we definitely should try and find something that we like. And the government's recommendations at the moment are to have either 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise, and that's looking at cardiovascular exercise. So that could be walking, it could be cycling, it could be swimming, anything along those lines. And quite often people get a little bit bogged down by the figures and think 150 minutes is really daunting, but you could break that down into 5 lots of 30 minutes, and you should really try and think of the difference between moderate intensity exercise and vigorous intensity. So with moderate, you could be able to have a conversation. So if you were able to go for a walk with a friend, you'll be able to chat to each other, and you should be able to hold that conversation quite easily. With vigorous exercise, you may find it a lot harder to maintain that conversation. If you were to speak to someone, it may just be those one-word answers.
Laura, what are your thoughts around pacing, how we go about this? We've found a physical activity that we like to do, but, how do we get started and how do we motivate ourselves to keep going?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, as Kelly said, finding something you enjoy is really important. And actually, it's useful to sort of assess where you are to begin with. So I think often we can have sort of ideas of what our ideal might be, and we might kind of fall into the trap of trying to compare ourselves with other people. So we might see what other people are able to do and want to be like them, but that's not realistic for ourselves necessarily. So starting by evaluating where you are and what your current activity level is a good place. And then being realistic about how much you change that. So even just an improvement of 1% a week, for example, over a long period of time can make sort of life-changing difference and lifelong differences. And that's a little bit around kind of habit forming good habits. And pacing comes into that. So if you're realistic with the goals that you set, if, for example, you wanted to be able to walk around the block in your village and that's a 3-mile loop, but at the moment you can only kind of manage under a mile, the 3-mile loop might be something that you want to achieve in 2 months' time, and actually breaking that down into smaller chunks until you can, sort of achieve your final goal is a good place to start. If you set realistic goals and you pace yourself well, then you're more likely to set yourself up to succeed. And also, not being too hard on yourself if you do have a bad day or if you fail to reach the goal for that day. We all have those days. It's about the positive mindset in not being sort of crushed by that, but actually picking yourself up and thinking, okay, I didn't achieve what I wanted to that day, but tomorrow the day after, the week after that, I'll get back on track. So it's being kind to yourself as well, I think.
So we're also recommended to do strengthening activities at least twice a week. And the reason behind this is not just to improve our muscular strength, but also to improve our bone density. And as we age, our bone density, it gradually decreases. So if we're active, if we're doing impact activities, that really helps just to promote our bone strength and decreases the risk of conditions such as osteoporosis or osteopenia.
We sometimes hear the term sedentary behaviour, and that's actually defined as sitting for periods longer than 4 hours in a day. Now, in sort of a world that's quite dominated by television and laptops and tablets and phones, it's quite easy to spend 4 hours a day or more sitting. And so trying to sort of break down the habits of sitting for that long can be a really positive thing. And it can lead to, becoming stiff and sore in our joints. That can in turn lead to weakness, and we're just not as physically prepared to sort of deal with what life throws at us if we've become kind of sedentary, if you like. And there are common barriers to changing that behaviour, which can be, I'm just too tired, or I'm in pain, or the weather's bad, or I just like watching television. But actually, even if you just get up and do 5 minutes of standing or 5 minutes of activity within that time, you have broken down that 4 hours of sedentary being. And that can be a start to helping improve your physical activity levels.
You're listening to Shout Podcast from the Firefighters Charity.
So someone who has decided to help both his physical and mental health is Stuart Rye. Stuart was a firefighter for 30 years. In 1993, when he was with London Fire Brigade, he was involved in a very harrowing incident that resulted in physical injuries and affected his mental health. Now based in the north of England, in an effort to help his own mental well-being, Stuart took up cycling, and last year he undertook a mammoth task of riding to all 4 compass points in the UK to also help fundraise for the charity. I asked him how that challenge came about.
I had it sort of planned probably three and a half years ago, really. But one thing or another, it didn't transpire. I was going to do it last year, but obviously with lockdown I couldn't do it, because I was going to do it May, June time. And then, cut a long story short, I thought, right, okay, I'm going to do it in September, October time this year. Anyway, over the years in my career, I'd done quite a lot of car washes to raise money for the Firefighters Charity, which had raised quite a bit, per station, per watch, up and down the country. And I thought to myself, is there anything that I can do to sort of like give back? And I thought, well, I haven't got a charity yet. I'm raising money for my bike rides. So I got in contact with our local rep, a guy called Alan Nell, and he put me in contact with all the people I needed to. Gave me all the advice and everything. So I got the ball rolling, and sort of from then on, just never looked back. Concentrating on a date. I got all my accommodation sorted out, and I was heavily training, doing loads of rides and getting longer and longer rides, and counting down to the big day when I started.
And how was it as a challenge?
Yeah, it was a tough one. It was very tough. I wasn't blessed with the weather. I was blessed with the scenery, because especially up in Scotland, it was pretty spectacular, really. And there were some days where they were very, very dark with regarding how I was feeling. But I knew that if I put my mind to it and just concentrated on little segments of the ride rather than thinking about the end destination, then I knew I'd be able to get through it. I questioned myself at times. I was thinking, there was a couple of mornings when I woke up, just go back to bed, just have a day off. But I thought, well, I can't, because I've got all my accommodation booked up for that night, so I can't change it all. I've just got to keep going. and I did that. I got it all finished, and it seemed at the time I'd never finish it. But there were some very, very long days, and not getting back to the accommodation until it was dark, which is tough. Cycling in the dark is very tough, I must admit, especially when you're exhausted. But I got it done.
It sounds like this was almost a journey of two parts. It was a journey for your physical health, but the mental health aspect that came into it as well. Did that surprise you about how you felt while you were going along and how you managed to push through?
When I am out cycling, with the mental health aspect of why I do cycling, I'm just pretty much at peace. I'm at peace with my thoughts. I can think logically when I'm on my bike because I don't have any distractions. The time can go when you are cycling, when you are alone, at thoughts with yourself. I felt after going out for a bike ride, however long it was, I came back rejuvenated, and I just felt so much better from getting out and getting energised again. It was great.
And it wasn't actually until after retirement that really you discovered the Firefighters Charity and then used the services, right?
I retired in June 2020, and I'd used the Firefighters Charity base up in Penrith in the January of that year. So I had used the services, but that's the first time in my 30 years that I'd ever used them. I'd known about them,
Yeah.
but I just, in all fairness, I just never thought I was worthy of it. And it was, I suppose, never even gave it any thought about using the services that they had. I mean, I've known a lot of people that have gone there, but that was mainly for physical injuries that they had. I hadn't actually known about anyone who had gone there with mental health issues, but I'd never thought that. I never thought I was worthy of going. Just thought it was not discounted, but there was always going to be someone worse off than me, and that's how I'd always viewed it, really.
Well, I'm so glad that you got over that and that you did, make use of the charity services. And then how thankful are we for your fundraising efforts as well? Just over £3,800 was raised by your 4 Compass Points challenge. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. I never thought I'd get anywhere near that. I think I set my target at about 2,000, and it just kept increasing. The support has been fantastic.
Stuart, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
No problem.
Hopefully you can continue on this journey with both your physical and mental health. The two combining together definitely seem to be helping you these days.
Yes, no, you are right. You are right. I'm looking at the weather now, thinking I might even get out this afternoon.
You're listening to Shout Podcast from the Firefighters Charity.
That was Stuart, and he, I think we can all agree, is a real motivation. Laura and Kelly, do you think it's a good idea to get something in your mind you want to head towards achieving?
Yes, I think it depends on sort of what motivates you. So for Stuart, the motivation of raising money for the Firefighters Charity, and even just those compass points, albeit pretty extreme, north, south, east, and west of the UK. He said in his darkest moments when he thought, "What am I doing? This is killing me." Actually, the motivation for achieving that goal of the points of the compass and the additional sort of boost of raising money for the charity was great motivation for him. So it depends what motivates you as to sort of the goals you set. Some people might be driven by numbers. Some people might be driven by their physique and how they look, and the benefit that exercise can bring, with your sort of your body shape or whatever. Some people might be motivated by something that they can do that would benefit the community. So it might be going out and picking up plastic from the beach. It might be joining an organised litter pick. It might be planting spring bulbs in the village or down at your local fire station, whatever it might be. Something that motivates you and gives you a different sense of achievement or a different focus, and the physical side of things is sort of a happy consequence, as part of that.
And one of the things that Stuart mentioned was the difference that doing his cycling, whether it's just a short one heading out for a couple of miles a day or these massive challenges, was the difference it's made to his mental health. Kelly, what connections are there to how we can feel better in ourselves mentally as well as physically?
So yeah, being physically active, it has numerous benefits, not just on your physical health, but as you say, on your mental well-being as well. And when we're active, feel-good hormones are released, and these tend to come under an umbrella term called endorphins. I'm sure we've all heard of them before. And there's endorphins such as serotonin, dopamine, and these are what gives us that runner's high, or in Stuart's case, that cycler's high. And they help reduce our perception of pain and give us that feel-good factor from exercising. But also from a mental well-being point of view, there's that sense of achievement and that sense of fulfillment, as well as being able to achieve those goals. And for Stuart, reaching that north, south, east and westerly points of the UK, it will definitely give him those sense of well-being and fulfillment as well. There's also the cortisol response that we need to think about as well. So when we exercise, we put a small amount of physical stress on our body, and our body adapts to being able to deal with that stress from the exercise, and then in turn we can become more resilient. So this crosses over to emotional stresses and allows our body to cope better if we're dealing with those two.
If you want to find out more about the issues we've discussed today, then visit firefighters.charity.org.uk/shout podcast for lots of links to articles and information. Stuart bravely shared his full story with me when we spoke about the challenge, including telling me about the incident early in his career that affected his mental health. To hear that story in full, just check out the show notes of this episode. And you can make sure you don't miss any of the main podcast or Shout Podcast Plus episodes by subscribing via your usual platform. So what's coming up next time then? We'll be looking at the physical and mental benefits of being outdoors. We speak to Nursing Services lead Kath Savage, one of our beneficiaries who's experienced these benefits firsthand, and Simon Jakeman, a green champion from London Fire Brigade, about the importance of green spaces. Until then, take care.
Shout Podcast. Please subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts, and check out firefighters.charity.org.uk to find out how the Firefighters Charity could support you.
If you liked Shout Podcast, you're going to love My Firefighters Charity, the new social media wellbeing and fundraising app for the fire services community. Packed with great wellbeing content from the expert teams at the Firefighters Charity, you can connect with others, join groups, collaborate and have fun with your fire family friends across the UK. And you can get the advice and help you're after from the Firefighters Charity whenever you need it. Head to your app store, search for My Firefighters Charity and register for free today.